Hello everyone, welcome to the video series on UFT automation. This is a part 2 video on data tables. If you haven't watched part 1, then it might be difficult for you to continue with part 2. And another a small prerequisite for this is you must be familiar with VB loops. So you might want to go to VB scripting, refresh yourself on the looping concepts or the for loops, while loop, do loops, and in this specific example we'll be looking at for. So as long as you are familiar with the for loop, then we are good to proceed. So the next section, I'm continuing from part 1. We're going to continue where we left off. So the next one is number 4, processing all rows. So what do we need to process all rows? Number 1, we need to know which sheet we want to work with. I mean, if we are working with sheet 1, or I mean to say sampler 1, if you want to work with this data sheet, that means we need to know the name. Number 2, to process these records, we need to know how many rows are in there. I mean, if the sheet has 2 rows, then we process 2 rows, and then we try to process a third, and if there is no third row, then we would run into an error. So we need to really know the total number of rows in the spreadsheet or in the data table before we can proceed processing them. So first thing to begin with is we need to know the total number of rows. Obviously, to get to the total number of rows, we have to know the sheet to work with, right? So we're going to work with sampler 1. So here I'm going to say row count equal to, and I'm going to use this one here. So it's very simple. You don't even have to remember all that, data. And if we want to work with a sheet, and we need to give a name that you want to work with. And then we want to count or get the row count there. So that would give you, that line 33 would give you the total number of rows in the data table sampler 1. Now once we have that piece, we need to kind of process or go through each row and do some work. So let's say we want to target displaying the first name from every row. So let's try to target that. So I want to do for loop. So all I did was entered 4 and hit a space bar, and then it kind of brought the whole syntax for me. So I'll keep it simple. So I want to process from 1 to where? I want to process 1 to row count. So obviously this is going to return 5. So it's going to do in order. It will be dynamic. And tomorrow, let's say you want to mess with this script and delete few rows or add more rows. This will automatically take care of this. You don't have to hard code it, because dynamically it will count the rows and process it. So this loop now it will rotate 5 times or iterate 5 times, and then we'll say we need to retrieve that, right? Number 1, we need to make sure that we set the current row properly. So data table dot set current row. And whatever row that we're working with, that would be the current row. And then let's start, reading data from the data table. So we will do print, and we want to do row, and I'm going to use that. For now, let me run this once and kind of show to you that it kind of runs 5 times. Let me run this. And let's go to output, and you can see here row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, because for every iteration it's printing the string row, and that's a variable iterator. That's when it's, so first time it's 1, next time it's 2, next time it's 3, so it does that. So we know for sure this kind of iterates 5 times based on this count. So next is let's try to read the data from the data table and display it as it iterates. And our target was to display the first name. So I'll do this ampersand. Okay, row 1 and this, and we want to display the first name. And to get to a specific cell, again we use the data table dot, and we need to get a value. So value, and we need to, what is the value we want to pull from the data table, and it's the first name. Now, once we define the parameter name, if you look at the IntelliSense, you're getting a little format displayed to you on the screen. The next is you have to give the sheet name, and the sheet is sampler 1. So this would return. I mean, by the way, it is not specifying. Yes, I mean, it's not specifying which row, but it's specifying that, hey, this column, and that is this sheet. But what happens is every time it iterates, we are setting the current row to that particular row. So when the script is processing the first row, it will display John, and the second time it starts processing it, it will be Mary. And let's go ahead and run it. And let's go take a look at the output. So look here. So row 1 John, row 2 Mary, Peter, Bobby, Landry. And to make it a little bit interesting, just for the heck of it, I'm going to copy that. Primarily what I want to do is I want to put a comma in there. So name, comma, and say the city where they are from. I go to data, and the city is here. I'll say city, same sheet. So I'm reading. For every iteration, I'll be printing John, comma, and the city. Here it would be John, comma, Milpitas, Mary, comma, Houston. We go run it. Let's go take a look at the output. So we have row 1 John, comma, Milpitas, Mary, comma, Houston. So we have all that. So this is how you process records in a data sheet. So it's simple. I mean, pretty much it's industry standard within QTP or UFT. They use for loop, and if you're familiar with the for loop, you're done. I mean, that's it. Nothing more than that. So next we will learn to add sheets. So see here we have global sampler 1, sampler 2. What if you want to add another sheet there? I mean, we normally create an action and there would be corresponding sheet here. What if you want to add a sheet? So what we will do is now again, design time, runtime will come into picture. So I'm going to do data table dot, let's say there's a function called add sheet. Then all I have to give is the name, and the name I want to say new sheet 1. I want to give that name. Okay, so that step would add the sheet. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so here there is no sheet. Global sampler 1, sampler 2, and as you know, anytime you make any changes to the data tables, it's actually happening at the runtime level. So if you go to run results and go to data, okay, now it is not displayed here because there's no data there. That's the reason. So let's go back and add some data to the new data sheet that we just added. This data table, data sheet, it's interchangeable. So let's add some data into this. And what we will do is in the next step 6 here, we'll import the data from a specific spreadsheet and dump it into this new sheet that we just added. So, and again, this whole thing happens during the runtime. You cannot see it in the design time because it's happening in the runtime because it's a line of code. So in order for you to import, again, same thing, data table dot, as you might have already guessed, import, and we want to import a sheet, a specific sheet. So now to import that, I'm going to use this spreadsheet here, and from there the syntax is sheet in Excel. Now the sheet in Excel, I know that there is a sheet called students, and then from there I want to bring the sheet called students. Oh, by the way, the syntax is I need to put a comma in there. Now where do you want to bring this into? We are, this is a source, and what's the destination? The next one is the destination. What is the destination? Destination is a new sheet. So just get that name, pop it there, and you're done. Now this will import the data from a spreadsheet called students2. Let me open that spreadsheet real quick. Okay, here I have the spreadsheet. Data is kind of close to what we have there. Let us add some changes here. Let me add an email address. Just say training@etraining.com, just so that we actually see the difference between two sheets. I'll just copy it. Okay, I have this spreadsheet and let's save it. It's sample data underscore students.xml, sorry, XLSX, Excel spreadsheet. So from there, I'm going to grab this student sheet and copy the data into new sheet 1. Let me go ahead and run it. Again, after the script is done, okay, it's done. If we were to look at the data here, there would be nothing here because it's all happening in the runtime. So let's go look at the run results. Go to data. See, now we have new sheet 1, and the new sheet 1 has the data. And this, let me move this a little bit. Look at this. You have email address, and if you go to sampler 1, there is no email address here. So it's exact copy, but I just want to show you the difference between these two because it was same data. So that's why I added email column within the spreadsheet. So it imported everything. Once it imports, you can actually work with this imported data as well. Meaning here, the way we were iterating this, let's copy this whole thing and paste it here. And then we are working with this sheet. I'll just put a print statement here, print. Okay, and I just made a copy of this for loop. I want to count, and iterator. Okay, let me make a quick change. You know what? Let me deal with this later. Let me cover the export part. I want to take 6 and 7 together. So now we saw how to import the data. Now let's go into exporting the data. Again, as you might have already guessed, we had import. The same way we can do export as well. Data table dot export sheet, and then give it a name. I'm going to copy this line or the path there, and I'll say underscore export underscore 123. So that would be the new spreadsheet. And then if you look at it, the next argument is the source sheet. So what is the sheet that you want to pull the data from, and what's the destination? So now that is our sheet because that's where we are importing here the data. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is it will bring the data from a spreadsheet called students2. This XML, this spreadsheet, And within the spreadsheet is going to get this sheet. This is Excel document. This is a specific sheet within that Excel document, and it's bringing into new sheet 1 within the UFT. And while exporting, I'm sending it to the new a total new Excel document, and I'm using this thing. This is a source, so whatever data is in here will be sent to, and you can give a name here. I mean, it's a total new Excel document, so you can give whatever name. What I'll do is I can give the same name if I want to, but I'll just make a little change there and give dash exported. So if I run, what I'm hoping that would happen is step 41, it will create a sheet in the runtime, at the runtime, I mean, within the runtime data table. And then it will access this Excel document, get data from this sheet and copy it to the new sheet that we created, in the runtime. And then step 48, it will take the data, whatever is in this sheet, and you might have changed it between line 45 and 48. You may even change all the data as you like, but by the time this line or 48 comes into picture, whatever information that you might have at that time during runtime, you'll take all that, dump it into a new sheet here with the name new sheet -export 1, and then of course it will create this document. And just so that to prove the fact that it actually creates, let me take you to that folder. So in that folder, I don't have export. What was the name? Export _123. I don't have it. So let me minimize that. I'll say exported. So we don't have that file. So let me run this. So it is done. Now let us verify two things. First, let's go to output. Okay, we see the output there. Now let's go to run results, and let's make sure that there is something called new sheet 1. New sheet 1, yes, and we have email addresses. Now let's go and look at the Excel document that we created, and that should be, let's go to the script, and there should be a new file with this name. Export _123.xlsx. Okay, it did create, and let me open this file. So see, the sheet name is new sheet 1-exported, and this whole data, and if you look at it, the first row, by the way, I don't know if I actually touched this topic. When you export data, let me go to sample 1. So it was runtime actually. So when you export data, the first row in the Excel document is nothing but the header in the data sheet. So the header is student ID, first name, last name. That becomes the first row. And when you try to import this into your data table within UFT, whatever is the first row, that becomes a header on the UFT side. And let me go back to the run results, because that's where we actually exported this table from the runtime. So this, if you look at here, the first row is starting at 1 John Keller Anderson, and if you look at the spreadsheet, it is not. Row 1 is student ID, first name, middle name. That's the, if you look, that's the header. The header becomes the first row, and the row 1 becomes a row 2 in Excel. And when you import it, same thing happens. Whatever is in your first row becomes the header when it gets imported. So that's something that you have to kind of watch out when you work with import and export, because a lot of people, what they do is they kind of just assume that it would import appropriately, and they may not have this, and they may think that it's this. If you look at it, it might tell you that there are 6 rows in here, And if you hard code this to process 6 rows, then you'll fail. So when you import this, what you really get is from the second row till the end, which would be 5. Just a little tip there. So that's how you import and export data. Let's go back and see what's our next topic. So we're going to put everything together, then use all the above concepts in a scenario close to real time. So let me do this. Let me do a quick recap, a real fast recap on what we covered, and then I'll do a separate video on this number 8. So we first looked at how we can access data from a specific spreadsheet, get the data from a specific cell. And then we also saw how we can modify the value. I mean, you can primarily you're assigning new values to the cells. And then we looked at a process where you can count the number of sheets in your data table within UFT. You can count the number of rows in a specific spreadsheet or a specific data table, as long as you know the name. Next, we use this, the concept of counting, and we applied within the for loop to process every record within the data sheet. Of course, we specify which data sheets to work with, and we get that done that way. Next, what we did was we added a new sheet to the runtime data table, and then we were able to import data. We were able to export data. Okay, that's a quick recap, and in the next video I will show you how we can take all these concepts and apply to our sample application. I'm not to the sample application, but to our scripts that work with sample application. Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed this video. You might want to watch a couple of times to get a good hang of it, but I would highly recommend you to write your own scripts. I mean, it's that way it will help you remember and understand the concepts real good. So practice, practice, practice. You have to practice to understand and retain the knowledge. Okay, well, I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching.